All right, Parashat Noach. So every time we say Parashat Noach, everybody remembers what thing?
The ark.
The ark, the Mambul, the ark, and so on and so forth. However, many times we neglect the fact that the parasha is really divided from two different parts. And only the first part is Parashat Mambul. Talks about the flood and so on and so forth. The second one is the world after the flood, which is basically our world today. And it's, hello Mark, and it's very interesting that the separation between these two worlds really goes almost in the middle of the parasha. 77 psukim before, 76 psukim after. You know, kind of interesting, just as like to know that. And you know, of course, when it says "V'zot ot habrit," that's where it's referring to. This is our world, and the brit, the covenant that we are talking about, is the promise of a Kadosh Baruch Hu for the existence of the world by nature, the way we know it as it is, and not what the word was beforehand. That the nature of the world might change because of the flood, or what caused the world to come to a flood, and so on and so forth. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu altered, and I'm not going to get to it now in terms of the philosophical reason to it, because it really has to do with b'chira chofshit, with free choice, and so on and so forth. And I don't want to get into this matter now. And from this point on, the world is acting the way we know it. You know, you plant a seed, you harvest it on time, and so on and so forth. Winter is cold and summers are hot. Of course, we're talking on this side of the globe, and you know, that's how we know the world. Now, I really want to talk about the world. You know, of course, the world that we have. It's interesting also to note that we have the world before. On the word before the Mabul, it says. וכל יצר מחשבות ליבו רק רע כל היום, and the desire of man, it's bad all day long. And after the Mabul, it says of the man, כי יצר לב האדם רע מנעוריו. I don't know. We could write books of philosophy just on those things. It's wonderful. And also that's the reality of men, and the reality of their earth itself is begeder what we say v'tishchat haaretz v'timaleh haaretz chamas, and the land was destroyed and they were filled up with Hamas, and not the Hamas from Gaza, even though it's similar to the concept. And the world after the Mabul starts with shichrut, with drunkenness and fornication and so on and so forth. And after that, now. There is this generation, I heard many things. Some people Dora Haflaga and some Dora Palaga. I like the Dora Palaga better than Dora Haflaga. Haflaga, whether we're maflig. Laflig is to cruise, whether we're cruising or cruising on a highway to hell, ACDC, I don't know. But, so Dora Palaga, and that is the Migdal Bavel and so on, and I want to talk about that. Hey, Ben. So there are many traditions in the world that deal with the story of a flood, of the Mabul, what we call it. Whether it's from China to the Incas, from India to Greece, from Judaism to the Babylonian tradition on Gilgash and all these chevre over there. And I want to bring here an example of the Babylonian tradition about the flood, okay? And I'm going to use it, with your permission, as a point to actually show you something that is deeper than that. And it seems like in the Babylonian tradition that the gods, the Babylonian gods, were not so happy from mankind. And so therefore they gather the great assembly of the gods, and they came to the vote that they need to sink humanity. But the God of wisdom, and I'm not from NPR, so therefore, or BBC, so therefore I'm probably like butchering his name, but his name is Aha or Aha, I don't know, something like that. He's the God of wisdom, had wanted to have mercy on mankind. Therefore, Aha asked from one man. His name was Onti Pishtim, whatever his name was, to build a ship to his family and all living creatures. And on Pishtim work very diligently on the work. And when the rain came, his boat was ready. And for 6 days and 6 nights there was heavy rain that flooded the whole entire world. And even the gods start worry about their destiny, because the god probably also would have been flooded also themselves, And besides on Pishtim and his family, everybody else besides them actually sunk in the mud. There was a big mudslides, and everybody died over there. And the ship landed on Mount Nisir, also known as Mount Ararat, which is in Armenia, today Turkey, but it used to be Armenia, the Turks.
Right?
Huh?
It's on the border of both countries.
On the border of both countries, and yes, and where used to be Armenia, I don't know, and yes, when the Turks actually butchered the 1 million Armenians, nobody said it, I don't really give up whatever, I said it, here I said it, Erdogan, yeah, I said it. So, and then on Pishtim, send birds to check the situation of the water, if they can go off the boat. I guess it's 9:23. No, we're early today. 8:19. Z is here, and when On Pishtim came from the boat, he brought sacrifice to the god on the top of the mountain, and only Enlil, the god of storm, was very angry to see that actually there was some mankind that they were saved. But Aha was able to make up to him, and we're using some nice words. And as a sign for that, Enlil gave On Pishtim and his wife eternal life. Most of the stories are more or less the same thing. So, but if you're going to look at this tradition, and then on the other hand, we're going to look on the Tanakh, on our Torah. Even from a complete academic point of view, I wouldn't say secular deliberately, I'm talking from an academic point of view, you're going to see a great and significant difference between the two. Great and significant. The idea of the flood is transforming from a myth or legend or folklore story to really a outlook, what we call hashkafat olam, to an outlook of life. Like, how do we look at life? Hey, take something to drink before you're going to choke on your own spit. And that outlook says that mankind, humans, have to behave in a very specific and moral way. They have to. Whether it's for themselves or towards society or towards nature itself. They have to act in a certain moral way. Otherwise, as a result of lack of morality in their actions or morals in their actions, mankind could bring to the destruction of himself and the destruction of nature. And by the way, I'm not a spokesman for Greenpeace or for the environmentalists and so on and so forth. But if those environmentalists would really know anything about anything, they would actually use this parasha to make their case. And there's a very strong case to make from this parasha on environmental issues. So now the measure is, it's not if God is bothering the gods to sleep, or he goes on the nerves, or for whatever other reasons, I don't know, because in the Greek mythology you have the whole story, Zeus had a stomachache, I don't know, kind of crazy stuff like that. So this is not the criteria in which we measure whether it did this or the other. The reason is if he's doing what we call Hamas. or not. Now, to a certain extent, the image of God, or God plays a secondary role in this thing. He is not the main character. The main character is man. Can you put the AC on? The main character is man, and God is really secondary that to show us basically the responsibility that we have. And that responsibility, you really see, strongly. Put this one, not that one. In Perek Chet, in this parasha, in Perek Chet, in Pasuk Chaf Aleph, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu says that He is not going to punish the earth anymore as a result of man's actions, right? Lo osif od, right? I'm not going to punish the land for man's actions. Why? Ki yetzer hara min ha'olav, and so on and so forth. In other words, the whole entire universe, and our responsibility is to outer space as well, will suffer because of men. Therefore, if the whole universe suffers because of men, therefore man is responsible not only to his actions, but also for everything else out there. And of course, if we ask this question, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroy men after Adam HaRishon ate from the tree, or after Cain killed Heaven? I mean, I would say, hey, that's a good opportunity. Look what they're doing. 2.25 hours after creation, they're already killing one another. Let's just kill him. One needs to understand that when Adam HaRishon ate from Etz Hadat, there was lack of obedience towards the word of God. That wasn't a moral issue. God says something, He chose not to. Again, we're kind of brushing on Bchira Chofshit, but I'm not getting into this. And on the matter of Cain on Hevel, when Cain killed Hevel, there was something personal. I didn't like him, I killed him. Right? It was personal. It wasn't a moral thing. And here HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and demands from us that our society will be a moral society. And we should know, by the way, that the explanation of the term Hamas means in Hebrew kilkul v'ashchata, means destruction and breaking apart of material or spirit. Of material or spirit. V'timaleh haaretz Hamas. We have many cases. If you look in the Tanakh, every time that we have the word Hamas, it talks about whether it's Shimon or Levi and so on and so forth. It's always about destruction, and so on. So Hamas is really that kilkul, when something falls apart, spoiled, and destruction. Ashchata, la'ashchit, is to destroy. Now, on Dora Mabul, when we say on that in Bereshit, in Perek Vav, over there in Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayomer Elohim leNoach, Ketz kol basar ba lefanai ki malaa haaretz Hamas mipnehem, vehineni mashchitam et haaretz. Rashi explains us this Pasuk, lo nechtam gzar dinam ela al hagezel. By the way, let me ask you a question. We'll see it later on. Oh, look who's here. Isn't that Mr. Montana himself? Good thing we're on camera, otherwise I would have said to you something. We're not talking about idol worshipping here. We'll talk about idol worshipping maybe B'ezrat Hashem a little later. However, Nechtam Gzar Dinam al Gezel. Gezel means, what Gezel means?
Robbery.
Not necessarily robbery. Huh?
Theft.
Not only theft. That's called Gneva. Ligzol from someone is, for example, if I see you have a nice watch. What watch do you have? You have a hairy watch, yes. Let's say you have a nice watch. And you, took it out, you have a nice ring, and you took your ring, you put it here on the table. Why do you wear rings anyway? By the way, talking about rings, I just remembered. I want to dedicate this shiur to Ilui Nishmat, I would call it my foster dad, a man that I loved very, very much. It was like a dad to me. His name was Shabbatai Ben Yosef and Flora Cohen. And I can tell you this man was bigger than life. They don't make men like this anymore. I don't know why, but they don't come like this anymore. A person bigger than life. And I loved him, and I still love him very much. So I want to dedicate this shiur for his Ilui Neshama, because I think he represents anything opposite of what happened in this parasha. Today is his yortzeit. Today is his yortzeit. I miss him very much. So I used to call him Dot Sabi. So Dot Sabi, wherever you're up there in heaven, I love you. I really do. I love him very much. So, it says, Hashem says that he's going to destroy them, and it's on the gezel. Gezel means that if you have a nice watch or a nice ring, and I stole it from you, you turn your head and I stole it, that's gneva. Gezel is that I said to you, listen, I want your ring. He said, no. I said, you're going to give me the ring. I'm going to make, that's gezel. Making you give it to me against my will. That's like usually what governments do. Eminent domain, whatever you want to call it. But that's, usually what they do. Bullying, racketeering, they're allowed to do so because they're the governments. But, they're allowed to break the laws in which they set. But, yeah, that's gezel. That's bullying, whatever you want to call it. Gzar din is on that. It's such an immoral thing to do. And that's what Rashi says. Gzar dinam nechtam. They could have changed it until they reached that point. They reached the point that everybody was oppressing the other person. Guess what? Guys, you finish. You're useless. I can't have this anymore. So, and this is a generation also that everybody claims that the world is his. It's my world. It's my thing. I am, and we'll get to this later. And Hashem is not willing to stay with a word like this. And it says, "Ve'ani eneni mevi et hamabul mayim al haaretz." לשחט כל בשר אשר בעורו החיים מתחת השמיים, כל אשר בארץ יגווע. Anything that is on the land will die. And Dora Palaga went to the other extreme. Dora Mabul went to one extreme. Dora Palaga went to the other extreme. And they suggested, and as we say in Bereshit Perek Yud Aleph, over there, Vayomru, Hava nivna lanu iru migdal. Let's build a big city in a big tower. Ve'rosho b'shamayim, and head in the sky. ונעשה לנו שם פן נפוץ על פני כל הארץ. I'm going to make a name for ourselves because we don't want to be spread all over the land. Where did it come up with this idea? So Hashem looks at these people and he identifies. It says, "Hen am echad v'safa achat lekulam." They all have one language and they are one nation. V'zeh chilam la'asot. מה זה וזה חילם לעשות? And that's what caused them to do it. ועתה לא ייווצר מהם כל אשר יזמו לעשות. And now they can do whatever they want. So they have the power of unity to do and to execute. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, but this is not what I had in mind for them. Therefore, I'm going to punish them in the same way. מידה כנגד מידה. בלל השם שפת כל הארץ ובשם מפיצם השם על פני כל הארץ. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mixed them all up, put them in a scrambler, and then sent them all over the earth. So these two sins in our parasha are really opposing one another. Dor Mabul, the generation of the flood, is really egocentric. Each one, right, takes care of himself. I don't care about you, and so on and so on. And Dora Palaga is a generation that only takes care of the general. In other words, it's almost like fascism or totalitarian. They only care about society, not about the individual. The individual is not important. The individual is not important. Society is important. In other words, you are just, a part of the matrix. You are just an instrument in this great thing. That's why, by the way, that's why in Israel, one of the biggest uproar of secular Jews is that religious people don't work. Well, if I work or don't work, what do you care? It's my business, not your business if I work. I don't want to work. I have to work. What does I have to work? Oh, and the slogan, Yeshiva, anu banu arza, litfos et habanot, we came, right? Livnot ulibanot. It was this project that everybody was taking, and we'll see. This is exactly the door of Migdal Bavel. So these are two. By the way, these are two stages in the development of the world. And those two opinions HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not like, and he actually destroys the world. And we need to understand what should I do? What should I do? So there are two steps in development of men. So many times you see in a kid is very egocentric. In order for survival, he needs to be very egocentric, self-centered, right? This is all mine. Everything is mine. That's mine. It's mine. I don't want to give it to you. That's mine. I don't want to give it to you. Fine. Meanwhile, it's not theirs. Let's say in the kindergarten. Everybody's fine. That's mine. It's not yours. But it's all theirs. Everything belongs to me. Everybody needs to take care of me. Everybody needs to serve me. In other words, you did not grow up from Margaret Muller's stage of satelliting mother, baby satellites to mother. You're still stuck to someone 2 years old. Okay? And when you have a grown-up kid, a teenager and so on and so forth, usually goes after his chevra, his buddies. Right? Whether it's clothing, whether it's behavior, music, and so on and so forth. He learns to act according to societal norms. Not necessarily what's good for him, but what society decided is good for him. Many times we have groups of people that say, oh, that's what we do. That's the norm. God forbid we'll break. Let's say, for example, you need to go to a wedding, and the weddings are expensive. You have to pay like $300, for the cover of the cost. Oh, I can't do this. Well, you have to do it. Why? Because that's what we do. You have to break the norms. That confinement, or societal confinement, is derivative of the door of Migdal Bavel. It's a form of communal fascism. That what we do is more important than what you need to do. That's not good. That's not good. That's not good. Like you see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not like it. Now, it seems like the HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to teach the world that the best way to do it is a person really should give from himself to the cloud, to the general. However, he must keep his own personal identity. You could not lose your own self-identity and become like everybody else. This is not 1984 George Orwell, something like this. This is exactly what we're trying to do today. And I'm going to tell you, unfortunately, even among us, religious, wonderful Jews, we all have to look the same way. We all have to be dressed the same way. We all have to think the same way. God forbid somebody would challenge something or ask a question. Right away you'll become muktzeh, shake it, Where's my self-expression? How do I self-express myself? There's no self-expression, so therefore that becomes a bubbling point and a point of vector of yourself out of Judaism. Many people tell you, this is not for me. I need to express myself, so I push myself out. We got to be very careful from that. In other words, we need to make sure we're not becoming little fascists here. Whether we have, and that's why I think we should have small yeshivot, not big yeshivot, where we have more time and abilities to pay attention to the individual and not let the individual get swallowed. Come. Not let the individual get swallowed by the masses. If I have a yeshiva of 1,000 people in it, how in the world am I supposed to pay attention to the individual? To make sure to acknowledge him, his existence, to enhance him. How? Well, No, make a yeshiva of 20 people. Then you can do it. A yeshiva of 200 people, you can't do it. And many people, and from my experience, and I spoke to many people who were brave enough to say that. And I said, listen, we got completely burned out because there was lack of individualism. And then you're going to look to very funky ways to express your individualism. I don't know, maybe you're going to wear like, I don't know, red silk underpants. I don't know. It's like, but that's exactly what happens. You do that, man? Oh, it's getting worse. I mean, you're looking at each other like, you know. Now let's look. For example, okay. So you want to talk about Noach's Ark? So let's talk a little bit about Noach's Ark. The teva, the ark itself, if you look at this, can teach us a lot about how to keep our identity on all levels. We need to make sure we have the appropriate ratio of how we're going to operate between not losing our identity and yet contributing to the cloud, to the general. So first of all, we need to build a teva, a box or an ark that is going to be closed and it's going to be guarded, so water won't come in and so on and so forth, in a place that you would provide you with the proper environment to raise your family. Now, if you take the word the teva, taf yud bet hey, and you're going to scramble those letters, you're going to get habayit, the house. Build your house as you build the teva. It needs to be protected from the element outside, from external trends. Okay? And it's very important that the house will have a tzohar, a window, right? That you could get light from outside. But you control the light that comes from outside. And by the way, there's different quality of lights. For example, if you have light that comes from a what do you call this? A sky, sky roof, whatever it is, skylight. Or you have windows from the side, how big the windows are, how small the windows are. If it's on the north, it's on the south, and so on and so forth. But it needs to come from above. It needs to come from above, so you have less. It's a purer light that comes like that, right? And that sometimes you can close it when you need to close it. Right? The teva, when the rain was coming, it was going close. But you need to be able to open it, almost like a sunroof on your car. Many people like a sunroof, but never open it, just to have it, But, in terms of rules of life, you should really have a place like this in your house. A place where you could give outside by keeping the teva inside protected, again. So, take this analogy and now think about what you do in your home. Is your home built like a teva? Or follows that model of the teva? Is your house will give you the proper protection from so-called the elements out? In other words, one of the reasons I don't like to talk politics in my house, because I don't want to bring it inside my house. Politics is like feces. And if you step on it, excuse my, I didn't say that, just step on it. It takes a long time to clean it, and it sure reeks for a long time. I don't want it in my house. I can talk to you politics outside, and less I even talk to you outside because I don't want it inside of me. In other words, not only your teva, your house, but like this, also your own self. Also your own self. And you got to be very careful. You got to be very careful. Now, it says about Dora Aflaga, they built Migdal Bavel, they built the temple of Bavel, that if a brick was falling, a brick fell from the building, they used to cry. Chazal tells us if a man used to fall, they wouldn't even look. What's falling? A man, it's okay. A brick, oh my goodness, a brick. That's how wonderful they were. in their eyes, the project was always more important than who is building it or who we're building it for. Always reminds me of the words of Yitzhak Rabin when they were talking about the Oslo Accord, and then there were the horrible bombings in Yerushalayim and all over Israel when buses used to blow up and so on and so forth. So that bright light Rabin called them the victims of peace. Korbanot Shalom. Peace was, by the way, we'll talk about peace also soon. It'll be a little later, but we're going to talk about it. It's more, the project is more important than who is building it and who we're building it for. Think about all these things that we do. For example, let's say you build a shul. Does the congregation really need a bigger place? Or the congregation needs a warmer place? If you build a bigger place, who are you building it for? Always look at those things as well. The person is important. Fascism, communism, made the person small and insignificant. Always. That's why they build, as we said, ugly big buildings that made man look very small, insignificant, to show you that you are insignificant to the idea of the state. The state is more important than the people who make it, which is quite retarded, if you think about it. So, we need to understand that the source of evil in the world is that man is not satisfied with the fact that he is like God. Betzalmo. By the way, in Parashat Bereshit, it says Betzalmenu betmutenu, and then it says Betzalmenu lo betmutenu. Right? That's also a question. Look at the Ari, what he says about that. It's not enough to you that you are like God. Man wants to be God. So since man wants to be God, right, he does very funky things. I'll give you an example. It says that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu was very upset that he created men. Why was he upset? I mean, he created them. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, a person has a son, and he educates his son to the best of his abilities, trying to provide him with the proper tools to make the right decisions, to be able to think for himself, and so on and so forth. And guess what happened? The kid starts to act bad, goes off the derech. And, you get upset, and somebody will come to you and says, why are you upset? You told him to do what he wants. So what is there for you to do? To be upset, right? Mitztaer, I'm sorry. I'm happy that I gave you the tools, but I'm sorry that you used them in such inappropriate manner. However, you should not go in there and blow your kids to smithereen. You don't kill your kid. Only God does that. You are not God. That's why killing is so bad. Any form of killing, you're playing God. And any other games that we play, playing God. We give the judgmental people. We're judgmental. What are you? God. God is the judge, not you. So it's not enough that you are like God. Now you want to be God. Now, therefore, the shorish, the root of evil, is before the Mabul was the Hamas, what we said, the destruction that they had, the lack of morality, and after the Mabul was war. And when do we have war? So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu caused a person to speak, or caused mankind to speak in many languages, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, that's okay. So I speak Hebrew, and some guy speaks French. So I'll learn French. I can learn French. I can learn Chinese. I speak Spanish. I myself speak about 4 different languages. Okay, it's not a problem. I learn more languages. The more, the better. And then my uncle speaks 9 languages. So, but still, that does not mean what's the big deal about this? But rather, when it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created them in such, spread them and gave them different words and different so on and so forth, it was the lack of man's ability to see the other person, to accept and to see the difference in the other person who's standing in front of him. the concept of Judaism is, as Yeshaya brings, by the way, which is a wonderful, wonderful parak in Yeshaya, and you should read the whole parak and further, as in parak Bet. Yeshaya talks about war, the world without wars. When he talks about v'chitetu charbotehem leitim, and they will take their swords and they will take them into, they make it into shovels and plows and so on and so forth. And he understands that there is a reason for war, and we need to uproot the war. I mean, we uproot the reason for war. And the end of world wars, or wars in the world, is human unity, where we're going to be united. However, united in such a way that we're going to see ourselves in the shadow of God. When it says when all the towers will fall down, he talks about it, and all those all those things. Rabotai, read Yeshaya, it's wonderful. And then we're going to come to the fulfilled, as it says, "V'nizgav Hashem levado bayom hahu," and God is only going to be the superior element in that day in the world. What does it mean? It means that human pride is going to be dismissed in comparison to the greatness of God. Everything that causes is pride. It's very interesting. We talked about it before. Until the point of Doha Haflaga, when they start speaking different language, there were no gods. There were no idols. There was only one God. I think Maimonides talks about it. Some other people talk about it. Is that monotheism was first, then was idolatry. At that point, everybody believed that there was one God. That's why they built the tower. Until that point, there were no idols. Idols were created as a result of lack of human communication. There was lack of communication between mankind. And why is that? Because everybody says, "Oh my God," and that's no. You say, "Oh my God," why are you saying, "My God"? So that's lack of communication, and then we created idols. And only when we're going to look and we're going to understand how great and awesome and oneness HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, until only then there would not be any more wars in the land. Idolatry comes from giving a godly dimension to an institution, to a man, or anything else besides God. When I'm calling something, that's why they gave those divine powers to the moon, to the sun, to this person or that person. That's avodat elilim. When you are giving eternal power, eternal life, even to a person, you made him into a god, into an idol. That's why you got to be very, very careful from godifying anything else but God. That's why I keep telling you all the time, the only holy one is the holy, holy, holy one. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Every Kedusha comes from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. You got to be very, very careful. In other words, it could be very possibly so be that even in Judaism we were not able completely to remove idolatry or idolatry elements from our practices and our beliefs. And if nobody ever told you that, well, now you heard it. There's only one God. Anything else is idols. Everything else has a beginning and everything else has an end. Only God has no beginning and no end. There's no human who is worthy to be called godly. Nobody is at the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's the highest level that any human can ever reach, and he was called a servant of God, Isha Elokim, the man of God, never God. So you got to be very careful. Very careful. Even in Judaism, we have to be very careful from that. Institutions, lands, only God. So, when we're going to recognize this, and of course, Yeshayahu, Isaiah, gives a whole detail on that matter. It says that we're going to give up on everything. Our achievements are going to be meaningless. A gold, diamonds, silver, a power, meaningless. We're going to give it up. These are our idols. Elokei Kesef, Elokei Zahav, Elokei Even. Your house doesn't make a difference. Okay, so you got a doctorate. Yippee-ki-yay. Who cares? Who cares? Oh, I'm so smart. Let's say a person is the smartest person in the world. He had a little too much relish. He has gas. He can't move. It smells. It's nothing your person, for crying out loud. I'm a person, and he's a person, and we are all in the shadow of God. Our achievements are not our achievements. There were abilities given to us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not ours. That's why one should be very grateful. The more successful he is, the more grateful he should be. And should not come to Vayivad, Vayishman Yeshurun Vayivad. You got fat, and now you forgot about God. The more talented you are, the more appreciative you have to be of what God giving you. Never complain. You have no reason to complain, because you do have something. And when we don't realize that, we develop hatred towards one another, and we steal, and we rob, and we bully, and we do all these horrible things, and we step on one another, and we don't care, and we're becoming like that generation. Well, you take your pick and choose. Before the flood, after the flood. But that's what we are. So, until that point, it's going to be a problem. Now, you should know, therefore, that's why we have, by the way, wars of religion. Wars of religion we have, for example, like famous ones, let's say Christianity and Islam, they were fighting because it's my point. It shows us that they still did not came to complete realization of the unity and the unification of God is, and they still have some idol or idolatry elements within them. Because God wants me to kill people, you should know that if that wasn't the case, they would never go out to the war. They would never go out to a war on religious interests. Judaism never went to a religious war. You can go to war, and the Torah recognized that man can go to a war. The Tanakh recognized that man can go to a war. But not in the name of God. Jews never went to a religious war. Never. Because Judaism is the least or the purest in terms of that, of idol elements in it. Even though we slowly bring them in back again. Slowly we're bringing them back in many different shapes and forms. And many times through the great local establishments, the grand matrix of all that, everybody does that, so I should do it myself. So I just want to come to a close. We always talk about chet, chataim. So what is really a chet? What's a chet? And why it's called a chet? Why is it called avera? So in Hebrew, chet comes from the lashon of leachti, to miss. I missed the target. I missed the target. In other words, when we take advantage and we use whatever is allowed to us and whatever is legitimate for us to use beyond what is allowed to us, or for example, in the case of Etz Hadat, in the tree of knowledge, or the Migdal, we're talking about arrogance and feeling of supremacy. We are, which is not acceptable. You are in the presence of God. What are you feeling so great about yourself? Okay. For example, if a person says, "There's no boundaries for me. Everything is allowed." I mean, who are you to tell me what to do? Who is anybody to tell me what to do? I'm going to define whatever I want. I'm going to define what's right and what's wrong. Then you know you have a problem. If you're dealing with a person like this, you know you have a problem. If you're dealing with a society like this, you know that the society has a problem. And we live in a society like that. That has no boundaries, that everything that was written and known to us by God is erased. Everything is allowed. And the more we'll go in this path, more things that we cannot even think of will be allowed. And then we're going to come up with an excuse. Why is it okay? I was born like this. I was, and so on and so forth. I was born with a desire to make love to cactuses. Stop me. You know what I'm saying here. Yeah, don't feel bad. So, the da'at of man and his ability that was given to him by HaKadosh Baruch Hu passes the boundaries, and it says, the only reason why I'm allowed to do what I want to do is very simple. You know why? Because there's no God. Since there's no God, well, I can do whatever I want. And you know why there's no God? Because I am God. I am God. So regardless of the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a permission to control and to use nature, still does not give us the right to destroy nature. Because after all, we did not create the world. Therefore, we cannot do whatever we want. And when we don't do that, it's called ashchata. It's called Hamas. Kilkul, destroying, destruction, disrepair. I really want to go to Antarctica. Antarctica, there's a big US base there. And it's fascinating. Because in that base, everybody is important. Nobody looks down or up at anyone. They're all the same. The janitors, the guys who clean, and the guys who run the camp, they're all the same. It's so isolated. There's not going to be a butt of cigarette you're going to find there. When people, go to the bathroom, they go to the bathroom in a bottle, and then they take the bottle and they pour into a barrel, they close the barrel, and they ship back to the United States. And you know why I want to go to Antarctica also? Because it's the only place on Earth, I think, that there's no cell phone. Yeah. It's pure. Antarctica is like the world should have been in terms of people. They realize that their well-being is dependent on the other well-being, regardless of what you do, regardless of what I do. There's no one job important than the other. We are all important. And comes Avraham Avinu, I'll finish with this, comes Avraham Avinu, and Tyler talks to us, we start talking to him in Parashat Noach, and we should know that Avraham Avinu is the tikkun for that. Avraham Avinu goes and builds his personality. He leaves Ur Kasdim. He builds his own personality. But his goal is not to escape humanity. His goal is to fix humanity. And to influence it in order to do one thing, to spread the name of God in the world. Because at that time, from the time of the Tower of Babel to the time of Avraham Avinu, that's the creation of idols. Avraham Avinu wants to bring it back through spreading the word of God, by acting in a very moral way. The difference between Avraham and Noach. God told Noach, I'm destroying the world. Noach says, okay, what should I do? So build a teva. Okay, I'll build a teva. The world, God tells Abraham, listen, I'm going to destroy Sodom. Abraham is just, God, come on, man. No, there might be the 50 people there. You're going to destroy the whole. So for one city, he goes into an argument with God. For one city. He's guys, destroying the whole entire world. Never hears the word. Oh, why? Maybe there's some tzaddikim. That's what we should do. We are descendants of Abraham Avinu. We should act with morals, and we should spread the word of God out there. We need to keep the individual, and we need to understand, we need to keep our own individuality, we need to enhance our individuality, not for our sake, but for the sake of everybody else. That's the glory of God, that everybody is different. We need to understand that there's a tremendous beauty in being different, and that beauty allows us and should allow us to understand it, to accept the other. And I really hope that we shall all be able to find our proper place, a unique place that is given to each and every one of us in Avodat Hashem, in order to give. And that's why we say, Lilmod ulelamed. After you learn, you have to teach right away. Because Kiyum ha-mitzvot, Lilmod ulelamed, Lishmor la'asot, ulekayem. Kiyum ha-mitzvot is dependent on the stages of development that we're going to move from a stage that we are only receiving to the point that we are giving to the other. By doing so, we're going to contribute not only to Am Yisrael, to overall humanity, to glorify the name of Hashem, and that is true redemption. Rabotai, Shabbat Shalom, there's a lot of work. I just want to tell you something else. I came up to the reason why there is no holidays in Cheshvan. Every other month has a holiday or some event in it. Cheshvan has none. I think Cheshvan does not have a holiday because throughout Tishrei we were begging. We said, Hashem, we'll be better, we'll do this, we'll do this, that, the other thing. Comes the Kadosh Baruch Hu and says, okay, Cheshvan is free of any events in history, clean. You have plenty of time to really work on yourself. Let's see now if you could actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So you have a whole entire month to really get into the mood of doing what you're supposed to be doing, what you said you would do, what you know you should be doing. No interruptions. In a month and a half is Chanukah, Rabotai. 4 months from Chanukah is Pesach. Pesach comes, year is over. You don't have time. You have this month to really put yourself in a proper trajectory to be able to execute all the things that you need to execute. You don't have time. Let's get to work. One of the things we need to do is learn. Everybody should be responsible not only to himself only, but to others. Everybody should bring another friend to Yeshiva to learn. We're here in the morning, we're here at nights. Don't just think about yourself, bring somebody else. We learn here for free. Learning here is free. There's no excuse for you not to come. You come, you even get college credits. We don't even charge for that. In other words, I don't give you any reasons for an excuse. We all need to be on this together. Rabotai, there's a lot of work to do. And we all need it for this job. So, Mila Hashem Elai, Rabotai. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.